now. For some reason, it always takes a little, but we get a countdown if you see the screen there. Hey, everybody. We're back at OC Biz Live. Great guest tonight. And we will talk to you guys here real soon as we can kick off Facebook, LinkedIn, and YouTube. Thanks for coming in.
No problem. Yeah. I'm excited about this. So we're just waiting, guys. If you're on my Instagram, stay tuned. I will send you guys a link, and you can always catch us there. But if you're live, welcome, guys. Hope you guys can stick around.
Yeah. Here we go. Countdown's coming up.
All right,
you see it there?
Yeah.
All right. Well, good, guys. Welcome to OC Biz Live here at OC Biz headquarters. And tonight, we're going to have a great conversation with Sonia Ramirez that we were just talking off the air. I think we met like 15, 14 years ago. And I was like, yeah, what were you doing back then? How long have you been doing real estate? So thanks for tuning in, guys. As usual, every Wednesday at 7 o'clock here directly from Santana, California, Orange County. Here we are, guys. So thank you for coming, Sonia.
Of course,
First of all, thank you so much for joining us. And as you guys know, I'm all about giving the community information, telling them about different people, different business owners, things that are going on. So let's first kick it off with, ¿Quién es Sonia Ramirez? Who is Sonia Ramirez? Where were you born? Where were you born? Where did you grow up? How'd you get started into this business? What did you do initially? You know, I was telling you, I had a conversation with a guy the other day. He's a big successful mortgage guy, and he's like, I started at Jack in the Box. I'm like, okay, well then, from Jack in the Box to mortgage guy. So Who is Sonia Ramirez?
Well, I was born and raised out here in Orange County.
Okay.
So grew up in Garden Grove, Anaheim border, basically my whole life. Took off to travel a little bit in the first couple of years of college, studied abroad, did all that stuff, speak French.
Nice.
That's what most people don't know about me.
Sometimes I ask people, tell me something that I don't know about you, because all of a sudden, it's like, whoa.
I speak a little bit of French.
I speak a little bit, but I had French in high school, and that was my first period. And I'm glad to say that I had 72 absences in French. Class, because
I was like that
because I never went.
I was gonna say I was like that my senior year because it was zero period. For me. So
I never went.
I always said if you saw my zero period absences, that's how many times I actually was like. No, my sixth period was the actual absences, but I played sports, so it was like very little absences.
What kind of sports did you play?
I was a basketball and a volleyball player in high school. Yeah.
Okay.
So
very cool.
Loved it. Yeah.
You went to school here in Santa Ana?
In Garden Grove.
Garden Grove.
So I went to Rancho. Okay. So I went to Rancho Alamitos. So that's where, I'm not going to say what year I graduated. I'm going to give myself away. So we'll talk about that. We'll talk about that one. But so I graduated from Rancho. Started working actually in Parks and Rec pretty quickly. I think I was telling you, I was in Parks and Rec for 16 years. So that was pretty much my first career. I was a pre-vet major up until then. I thought I was going to be a veterinarian.
Oh, really?
Yeah, like everything was, I'm going to be a vet. And
you like animals, obviously.
I love animals.
Pets?
I have a dog.
A dog?
Right now. I've had cats. My favorite animal is a great white shark.
Great white shark. You can't have that as a pet.
Yeah, can't even have that in a tank.
No.
No aquarium.
Wow.
Great whites. But I went diving with great whites.
Did you really?
Yeah.
Wow.
That was one of my bucket list items that went off. Yep, check. So that was pretty cool. But so I did 16 years of Parks and Rec. And then left to start a marketing consulting company. And that's actually one of the connections that we have.
Yeah.
And but at the same time started a health and wellness like brick and mortar. Had the opportunity through an MLM actually to open up the first in the country. And I was like, this is it. I have always had side hustles. I'm leaving the city because even though it was steady and it was pensioned and all those things, I was like, it's time to bet on myself.
Right.
I'm out.
Yeah.
That lasted less than a year. Yes. Lots of lesson learned from my brick and mortar.
Yeah.
Right. So that went under, but my marketing started taking off.
Okay.
Right. Moved back to Orange County. I was living in Long Beach at the time.
Yes.
And then
I love Long Beach.
Yeah, I love Long Beach. And so moved back here. So basically it was like, okay, here's my marketing consulting company.
Right.
Here's my second iteration of a career in my 30s. Right. I'm in my 30s when that happens. Technically third, because my health and wellness thing was my second. This was my third.
Oh, wow.
But when I got back to Orange County, I started picking up more clients. This is how we ended up meeting. We had an event and we met, and then I started becoming part of the Hispanic Chamber of Commerce.
Yeah, that's when I was part of the Hispanic Chamber of Commerce, Orange County Hispanic Chamber of Commerce.
Yeah, the Orange County. Yeah. So through that, and this is one of the things that I always talk about, like networking is so imperative, is so important, right? Because I would say that most of the opportunities that I've ever had has come through my marketing connections.
Right.
And so I've always known that was something that I needed to do.
Okay.
And it was always something I enjoyed, right? But from there, I was like, you know what, it's time to get into real estate. I've always wanted to. Okay. And 9 years ago.
9 years ago. We were just talking about that. I thought it was like 5-6 years ago. And now you're saying it's 9.
This year will be 9. 9 and over 110 projects.
110 projects. Now, these 110 projects, tell me about these 110 projects. Are they fixer-uppers, developing from the ground up, acquiring units or so forth? Because you are, by the way, the
multi-unit queen.
Yes, there you go, yes. Multi-unit queen. That's what she goes by on Instagram.
Yeah.
So talk about what this is, what this title that you have, or this persona that you have out there, what this means to the people.
Yeah. So I started off in development, and that's what I think is really crazy. That most people are like, "How did you get into development?" Yeah. I'm like, "That's where I started. Maybe I didn't know any better, but." I took that course 9 years ago to learn how to wholesale. So if you don't know how to wholesale is basically getting something under contract, selling the contract to an investor, and making the difference, right? I never wanted to
have the middleman.
Yeah, being the middleman, like a realtor without a license, right?
Nice.
I never wanted to have my license, and I was like, this is what I'm going to do.
Yeah.
When I finished that course, I didn't have anyone that I knew in real estate, really. I didn't have anyone around. I kept thinking, I need a mentor.
Mm-hmm. So you didn't have a real estate license by then?
No.
Okay.
Because again, I was like I don't want to have a license. I just want to.
You were in the middle.
Real estate,
yeah, you're in the middle.
Through one of my marketing consulting clients, actually in downtown Santa Ana.
Okay.
She picked up a restaurant in downtown Santa Ana.
Okay.
And she's Persian.
Okay.
And so I'd go meet with her, and great lady, Nikki, and her friends would come in and support her. That community is very tight knit, so they would always come in and support her. And during one of those times, this gentleman comes in, we hit it off, we started having a conversation. His name was David. Okay. And I said, what is it that you do, David? And he said, I'm a real estate developer.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and I had that same reaction. I went,
It's all about connections.
Exactly.
It's connected, and that's very important.
And as soon as I did that, he was like, are you interested in that? And I said, I've been looking for a mentor.
Nice.
And so we have a great connection. He goes, you know what? Come to my office, which was right down the street, right here off of, off of MacArthur.
Okay.
Right? And he goes, come to my office. You do marketing for me, and I'll teach you everything I know. I said, we'll see.
That's a good trade.
Right. And I said, we'll see, right? Because I'm still like, I don't know about this guy.
Yeah.
And like 2 days later, I'm in his office, and we just, again, he was like, here's my skill set. This is what I come in with.
Okay.
I'm hungry to do something. I have my own company. And he was like, well, let's put you on commission. I'll hire your company, and we'll see what goes.
Okay.
So 10, 12 hours a day, constantly calling, learning, right? My first year with him as his acquisition manager, basically learning development, I acquired 12 properties with him.
Okay.
And he was doing 4 at the time.
Oh, when you do 4, you got 12.
Ground up projects, right?
Okay.
Mostly duplexes, triplexes, mostly South LA.
Okay.
And so
I noticed that most of the properties are in LA, 95%, right?
95%
in LA.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of triplex and fourplexes out there.
Well, and it's just the zoning development standards are really, really favorable to development.
I know, I contract with the ADU builder. They say it's a lot easier to do ADUs in LA.
Yeah, and ADU should be a statewide thing, but some cities still require a lot of red tape.
Yeah.
And so City of LA understands that there's a housing crisis. And again, that's just where I learned it. So since I learned it there, I'm very, very comfortable in the City of LA.
Yeah.
And like I said, first year, 12 properties, second year, 18 properties, third year, we just start snowballing. By the third year, I was like, hey, I want to be a partner on some of these things, not just your acquisition manager.
Right.
And then he was like, well, you need to go get your license too, because you need to sell these projects that we're finishing. We're starting to build all of them. Yeah. You know how to analyze them. I need you to be able to sell them in-house. So I went and got my license, started selling the multi-units, right? So really learned how to sell them. And most of them we actually sold off market.
Oh, okay.
It was especially at that
investors
time.
come in and they just buy
overseas
it off market.
Investors.
Overseas
almost
investors.
all. Yeah.
Esos chinos quieren comprar todo, ¿eh?
Coreanos.
Coreanos. Ay, hijos de su madre. Todos quieren comprar esos.
It's a fast track to get your visa. And so it was very easy to sell. right? And it was just like
you buy property, and that's an easier way to get your visa.
They buy a property and a business as a resident. So all four things in a multi-unit that's 2 to 4 unit residential.
Yes.
They get to basically kind of check all these boxes, and it fast tracks their visa. And their kids can get in-state tuition, all the benefits that you get. So we had a very large pipeline of buyers at that time.
These guys know how to do business, guys. That's the one thing about being informed and knowing how to work the system. I would say work the system.
Yeah, because again, it was like, this is what I learned. For all his faults, for all my mentor's faults, he was invaluable resource. He was an invaluable resource. And the way that I learned with him was sink or swim.
Yeah.
It was defend your property. Tell me what the zoning, how many units can you build on it? What's the rents? What are the comps? I had to learn how to analyze really, really quickly. But now people send me 10 to 12 deals a day, I want to say, and I just go, nope. Oh, that one looks good. That one looks good. This one could do.
Yeah.
So
I'm sorry to interrupt you, but take me like on a typical day for you.
Well, now it looks different because
back then.
That's what I was going to say. Back then, it was 7 years with my mentor. Like I said, we got to the point where we were at 36 projects a year when I left. So I left middle of 2023.
Okay.
So middle of 2023, I was like, at the beginning of 2023, my mom had passed in 2022. That was kind of life altering for me because I was her caretaker. And I was really in a spot of like, what do I want to do with my life? I was not happy in my partnership anymore because I didn't have the equity share that I wanted. I was making another person very, very wealthy.
And you went,
And I was making a living.
Yeah.
But I wasn't making a career for myself anymore. Right. And I was like, it's time for me to do something different.
Somos mexicanos, tenemos que buscarle.
Pero muchas veces no lo hacemos. Sí. Because we're comfortable. Somebody else is paying the bills. Somebody else has the responsibility. We're making a decent money. Why would I rock the boat?
Pero tenemos el espíritu de ser emprendedores.
Yeah, we really do.
De hacer algo.
Y más como mujeres, at least, I think.
Y aprenderlo y
highest growing population of entrepreneurs is Latinas.
Latino women.
It's not even just women, it's Latinas. So that's amazing to me now. But at the time, like I said, 7 years ago, so I told him, hey, I want better equity. We had that conversation. He basically told me it's never going to happen, Sonia. And I said, well, then I'm leaving on my own. And he said, good luck. And that was probably the best thing that I ever did, was to do that. So that was middle 2023, get into 2024, start picking up projects. So all of last year, I picked up 10 projects, started exiting 2 recently, getting 2 more ready to go. And I have 4 in escrow right now. So trying to pick up another at least 10 to 20 this year. Wow. So that's where I'm at. But my typical day is a little...
Working the phones.
It's kind of all over the place now. And the multi-unit queen kind of came out of all of this. I was already starting to be known as that because I was just focusing on 2 to 4 units. Again, I like really,
duplexes, duplexes, 3plexes, and 4plexes.
Quads, and ADUs, right? Once the ADUs started becoming a thing, it was like we were building them as rompus rooms before. So we would build them attached to a garage. We would put plumbing in them. It was all legal, but they weren't called ADUs.
They weren't
at the time.
ADUs at that point,
right? Yeah. And they couldn't do garage conversions, those kind of things. So we try to even then.
Are you doing a lot of garage conversions?
Oh, yeah. And again, I don't build for other people.
Right.
I only do in-house stuff.
Yeah, of course.
But we do a lot. My highest and best superpower, what I like to say is that's what it is that I figure out highest and best use for a property. So whether that's adding units, that's adding ADUs, figuring out the zoning, splitting the lots with SB8, SB9, I like live and breathe zoning. So
it benefits obviously people that have to live in LA, because they have the ability to do a lot more than in other places, is what you're saying.
Well, no, like I said, I just took down I've taken down a couple in Orange County now. I have a flip in Placentia, because the other thing was having this many leads coming in. I was kind of giving away leads, and I was like, why am I skipping over some of these when they could be fast exits, right? For me, not being new in the business, like making 10, 20,000 on a flip didn't make sense.
Of course. Don't take a flip and make 10, 20 grand.
No, but I'm saying...
Trust me, I flip a couple of properties. I ain't making no 10, 20 grand.
No, but you know what I'm saying? Like somebody who's brand new and learned a lesson, I was telling them, like, this is the cost of learning the lesson. You didn't lose money. No. You make 10 or 20 grand. Yeah. You're happy to come out of that project, learn what you learned, and know that you need to make more on the next one. You can't do that as a business model.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
when you
10,
first
20
do,
grand, it's a
yeah.
lot of work, a lot of sacrifice and doing
Yeah, but
this and keeping an eye on
some
people.
stuff
So,
is in and out in a
yeah,
month, right? In 8 weeks. So
yeah,
if you can get those quick ones,
sure.
sometimes those make sense, right? But yeah, right now, basically, ground up is my first priority. So I do ground up 2 to 4 units. Like I said, I don't do the big ones yet.
Yeah.
2 to 4 units with
You
ADUs.
will. But you will.
I'm looking at it again. Like I'm looking at my business model, going, I need to have the resources, the infrastructure, the network for that. I'm just not going to take it on and not know where my exit is.
Now, one thing I've noticed when you posted certain things and so forth, that you try to use other people's money.
Yes.
That's like the biggest thing in your business, I think, using
it's
other
huge.
people's money,
Yeah.
not your personal money.
Right. If we, because I did pick up a new partner, and it was somebody that I've known for the last 10 years. He was another developer who, at the time, would say, "Hey, whatever you don't take down, you know." And I had probably had about 12 developers who were like, "If you guys don't take something." But since I'm getting so many leads in, let me connect, right?
Okay.
So I was the connector. He actually contacted me about a month and a half, 2 months after I left my partnership, and I was wholesaling and I was building capital. And he came to me and said, "Hey, do you have a project? I haven't built for a year and a half, and I'm looking for another project." And he's like, "What's new with you?" I said, "I left my old partnership." And he said, "What?"
What?
And he goes, "You guys were doing so good." And I said, "Well, yeah, but it wasn't a fit for me anymore." And he goes, "I understood." He goes, "You probably should have left like 3 years earlier."
Yeah, and that's always how it is.
I know.
You know, you're making the other guy all this money. You're
Well,
okay. You're okay.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I was making a decent living, but
Yeah.
and then he said, "Well, who's going to build for you?" And one of the things that I always liked about him was that his build quality was excellent.
Okay.
And so I was like, I trusted him. His build quality is excellent. He's like, "Let's go 50-50. It's your company. I'm just your builder." And I said, "Well, let's go." But one of the conversations that we had was about capital, because he had some private money lenders that were waiting on the sidelines for him to start building, but he only had 1 or 2. And so he was like, especially with development, it's capital heavy, right? That's why a lot of people don't get into it. It's very capital heavy. And when he came to me and said, "We can only do 1 or 2 projects at a time," I said, "That's not going to work. I want to do 10, 20 projects." And he goes, "Well, then you're going to have to go out and raise capital." At the time, I had never raised capital.
Oh. Okay.
So beginning of 2024, beginning of last year. So January of last year, I've never raised capital. My partner, again, that was Persian, my old partner, had a very large Persian network, high net worth individuals. Those guys
like to get involved with all that stuff.
And he was like, "Look, you find the properties, you analyze the properties, you help me with everything else, I will get the money."
Okay.
And so it was never my responsibility, so I never learned it, which was my bad, right?
Yeah.
But then again, kind of sink or swim mentality. In January and February, I was like, "Oh, I need to start raising funds. How do I do this?" So I knew my numbers. That was the biggest deal. I know how to analyze a deal. I know the deal makes money. So how do I actually communicate that? So I started my own little webinars. I started sending it out to my people. Started raising a couple $100,000 here and there, like 50,000 here, 20,000 there. And I'm like, "Oh my gosh, it's working."
So are these private investors?
These are private investors, right? Just going out into the network of people who I knew, people who I didn't even think had money, were like, "That sounds good."
People that don't show money have money.
Right.
Yeah, that's the way it works. And people that are showing off, they're in debt.
Yeah.
They're in debt.
And so I was like, okay, little by little, it kind of started. We took down our first 2 projects. Then I actually connected, it goes back to networking. I connected with an investment group.
Okay.
And I joined a mastermind in April of last year, of 2024.
Okay.
So April of last year, I joined this group. I had raised a couple $100,000. Now February of this year, so less than a year, so 10 months later, I have raised $5 million almost in capital and private money to take down all my deals. So yeah.
Wow. Impressive.
Yeah, I was like, holy shit, it worked. You know?
I did it.
I know. And it's funny because, again, it's like, I knew my experience. I knew I built over 100 units. I knew that I knew what I was talking about, but it was still one of those limiting beliefs of like, can I do it? Will people trust me enough to do it?
Of course, you've got that thing where, oh, she's a girl, she's a woman. You know?
Right, she's a woman in a male space. Completely.
Yeah.
And so, and I mean, we met 12 years ago. One of the things that I don't talk enough about, I think, in my own social media is that I was 150 pounds heavier when you met me. I was
yes.
So I was a lot heavier, and people. I mean, do you think I was exactly the same? Don't you think? I mean, personality-wise,
yeah. I don't think there's been
nothing has changed.
Nothing has changed. Yeah.
And people were like, "Do you feel different? Do you?" No, because it was always.
Me.
I always knew.
It was always me.
Exactly. It was always me. I always knew who I was.
Yeah.
I always knew my capability. It never was a limiting factor in what I did.
Yeah.
It's been interesting to see everybody else's reaction to me, but not really my reaction to myself. So people are like, oh, where's the confidence come from? It's always been there.
It's always been there. Since I've known you, you've always been like that. That's what I was gonna say. Yeah. So you're my witness. I know. You're the proof here. I've always been like that. So how'd you do that?
I had weight loss surgery.
Ah.
Yeah, I had weight loss surgery. Okay. So I lost most of it in like a year and a half, I want to say. And this year will be 3 years that I did it.
Everything's cool.
Everything's really good. Yeah. I haven't had any complications.
Nice.
Nice.
Well,
so thank God, everything has been really, really good. But again, I think people go, I can't get on stages. I shouldn't be on camera. I shouldn't do these things because of somebody's going to judge. People are always going to judge you. Doesn't make a difference. Doesn't make a difference.
People will judge you and talk about you, and you know what? If they're not talking about you, that means you're not doing anything.
I finally started getting haters online.
That's what I always say. If people ain't talking shit, that means you ain't doing anything.
I know.
If you're doing stuff, they're talking shit.
I got a little sensitive a couple of months ago. I had some like crazy messages, and I was like, what? And then I was like, okay, I just got to relax about that. Like you're right.
Well, because they see you doing stuff, and they're like, how is he doing that? And how is he connecting with these people? How is he collaborating with these people? How is he getting this thing done? And why am I not there? And it's like, people just all of a sudden get jealous.
But even then, what's interesting to me is you see my content. My content has a lot to do with zoning, education, real estate again, right?
Yeah.
And I've taken the approach as a personal brand to document other things. So you said, oh, you're like a foodie. You go and eat a lot. Yeah, because
you're like me. You post everything.
I post everything because there's two things. You either are a content creator and it's very curated, or you're a content documenter. Right. And I just document. And that was a very conscious choice that I made when I was building my brand. I said, okay, it's going to be a personal brand. I'm going to document everything. Yeah. And but I get responses and messages about my body.
Do you really?
And I'm thinking, and it's again to a real estate post about development.
Yeah.
Oh, are you? And I'm going like, do you do this with men? Like with a male developer, do you think you would comment about their body and you think it's okay? Like, it's stuff like that where it just blows my mind that people still do that kind of stuff.
Goes to show that there's still people that are just not.
Yeah, and I was like, do you know I lost 150 pounds? I'm getting all indignant, right? But then I go, these people don't know me. They don't know who I am. Yeah. They think they see what they see. And, you get into this kind of parasocial relationship where people are like, hey, I know them. I like them because I feel connected because they see me every day. And there's obviously a great positive side to that, but then there's that ugly side of people thinking they can say anything they want to either.
And going back to how we met and when we first met, the attitude or the personality, the laugh, all that's always been the same way. Yeah. It's always been that way.
You know what's crazy about that is that I've had people see me in restaurants, right? And tell other people, I think I saw Sonia, and they wouldn't come and say hi to me, right? So the other person calls me and goes, hey, so-and-so saw you last night. And I go, why didn't they come say hi? And they said they weren't sure it was you.
What?
Because you look so different, because I look so different right now. But they were like, but they recognized your voice. Because then I was like, well, how did they know it was me then? And they were like, because they heard you talking, and they were like, that has to be Sonia. That has to be Sonia. But they never came and said hi to me. And I was just like, that's happened so many times. Really? They're like, or people will hear me if I'm doing a presentation or something. They'll hear me on stage, and they'll be like, "Oh, I came in because I heard you were on." And I was like, "How did you know I was on?" They're like, "No, I recognize your voice."
La voz.
Yeah. La voz. So I thought that was interesting. Yeah. La voz no cambia.
La voz no cambia. Wow, that's interesting. Yeah. So, out of these developments and these units that you're building,
going back to development,
this is all about knowing the person, connected. I always tell people when you come to the show, there's no list of what I'm going to tell you. There's nothing what I'm,
He didn't prepare me at all.
I don't prepare anybody. If you sit in the chair, which side's better, that side's better, okay, fine. We're going to talk about, we're just going to have a conversation. Yeah. And I think that's the best way. People ask me, why don't you edit your stuff? It's a conversation.
Right.
It's a conversation, and you can jump in now, you can jump in later, you can see it later, you can watch it now. It's still a conversation that is going to inform you, and it's going to be an interesting conversation and a fun conversation.
Yeah.
That's what it's all about. So, going back to development, what would be your biggest peeve about what cities are doing to maybe not allow you to do what you want to do, and what would be like one of your favorite developments?
So I would say my biggest pet peeve, and again, this goes back to city by city. The state of California has really started really leading the way, I think, because I talk to people now from all over the country through my investment community.
Yeah.
And it's funny because they go, oh, you're from California. Oh, you build in California. That's rent control. That's landlord. You know, it's not landlord friendly and stuff. And then they see my numbers and they're like, how do I send you money for your next deal? Right?
Nice. Yeah.
Because California will always have more exits, more zeros on their exits. So if I'm going to build at $180 a square foot, which is where I build at, and do that in a different state, I'm going to make half of the profit that I'd make here. Why the hell would I build anywhere else?
Yeah.
That's just,
makes no sense.
I stay in California and I stay in the metro area specifically because our exits are so much bigger. The potential is there. And that's what I like about California in general.
Mm-hmm.
So let's go with the good stuff first.
Yeah.
The good stuff is that your exits are going to be bigger. Your rents are always going to be high.
Yes.
You're always going to have a ton of renters. Right. There's not this lack of if you go into your specific areas, the metro areas, right? Now, if you start going into like, okay, hey, the high desert, and I'm going to go further and further out because the cost is less of entry. It's cheaper to get in there.
Yeah.
The development standards are also extremely different. So if here I can build on 5,000 square feet on a R2 lot, let's say in Los Angeles, that same duplex is going to take an acre out in the high desert, at least minimum, an acre or two, because you have so much more land there. So you have to know your development standards, right? But that California is really paving the way for development, knowing that we need it.
Okay.
That's great. Okay. The state finally started putting some teeth behind some of the regulations. Okay. So now they're taking cities to task that are not following the state laws. And before it was like, well, if they don't follow, you guys have to deal with it, right? Yeah. Now they're actually HUD and the state level is actually going after cities and saying you need to follow the state laws. And if you don't, and you try to put too many roadblocks in the way, we are going to take you to court and make you do this, right? Okay. So that's been awesome.
So that's not at a local government; it's more now.
We can do the state
government. Yeah.
So now the state is really stepping in because there was a lot of cities, especially like here in Orange County, and there's enclaves of very wealthy cities that are like, we know that this is state law, we just don't want it here, right? Yeah. We don't want the ADUs. We don't want the junior ADUs.
People are building ADUs like in Newport, Balboa.
Well, it goes back to.
I don't think they are.
They are, but it's mostly what you see in higher end echelons. Mm-hmm. It's intergenerational that they're building. That's because their kids are staying longer, or because the kids own it and they want their parents
to live there. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So that's more intergenerational still, right? What middle America doing and even lower now with ADUs is that this is a way to increase your wealth, right? Mm-hmm. Not only do you have a rental property, you're adding legal square footage to a property, so now it'll appraise higher. You know, it will qualify for FHA. It qualifies for all this stuff now.
And it makes total sense.
Yeah.
Makes total sense.
And like San Diego County went crazy and were like letting you do like 8 ADUs in a backyard of a house. And they went crazy.
Ooh, I had a friend of mine who does very well. He lives in Yorba Linda, and he had enough space to do 4 junior ADUs. Mm-hmm. And the city wouldn't allow it. It's Yorba Linda. You know,
right. And by right, he could do 1 junior ADU and 1 detached ADU.
Yeah, that's what they said. But he wanted to build for. Quería una pinche vecindad atrás.
No, and then that's what I'm saying. He couldn't do that because legally you can't do that. Yeah. Right?
But he had the space.
It's not about the space. Because you could have a tiny lot and you can still by right do it. Right? But again, it's if you can, should you?
Yeah.
Right? I build a lot in South LA. Not everything in South LA makes sense to put an ADU. Right. Can you do it? Yes. Can I build a duplex? Yes. Do the numbers make sense? No. Because the acquisition and my build cost doesn't pencil for my exit. Yeah. And
you make your money when you buy it.
Okay.
That's I always say it. Tell you
half of my deals.
Any kind of investment.
Half of the last 10 deals that I've done have been under $450,000.
Really? Wow.
Really. And that's why people are like,
what?
What?
450?
Yes. 450. And these are homes, land. This is not a condo. This is not these are, I got a
450. You can't get a condo in Orange County for 450.
I have Long Beach, Buena Park, LA, and there's another land, San Pedro, out in San Pedro. Those are all lots under 450, right? Then I bought at least 6 flips, also under 450. So those are, and then the rest of them are bigger developments. Okay. But they're with ADUs. Now, ADUs don't count towards unit count. count towards the unit count, right?
Mhm.
And so that's, again, statewide.
Yeah.
Doesn't count.
Yeah.
So that's always first priority. Second priority is taking multi-units that are vacant or mostly vacant and then adding value there, whether it's building additional units by right or building ADUs. So we do that. The third thing is taking these flips that have large margins and making money off of those, because those are out in 7 to 8 months typically, right? And as I'm talking about raising capital,
those are more improvements, more.
Yeah, those are straight improvements.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's ADUs.
Okay.
Again, if the numbers are there, it's adding an ADU, but that's straight. I'm doing the Placentia one right now, and I'm doing like 3 in South LA. But just the numbers make sense. I picked them up. Placentia I picked up for $640, putting about 125 in. We're out at 970. So that one made sense, right?
It always makes sense.
And that's conservatively, because I'm super conservative in my numbers, right? So I never go to the highest. So I'm going, okay, this one makes sense. We're going to move forward with that.
And when that comes in, investors, like you said, Korean investors are the ones that are buying them out?
For my bigger multi-units, yeah. For flips, no. It's usually regular
people.
Regular buyers. Yeah. Regular buyers.
And those are coming in at asking price, above asking price?
Above or asking.
Above or asking.
Yeah, I mean, we went through a little bit of a dip for one that we did in Torrance, but we ended up getting close to ask.
Can't win them all?
Yeah, exactly.
So
but again, we bought it such a good price that we knew we could take a $50,000 hit on it and it was fine.
Yeah.
Right? And we were still going to make the money that we wanted to make on it. Everybody gets paid their, what we promised them for private money, because we offer double-digit returns backed by the real estate that we build. So it's anywhere from 10 to 23%, depending on how long they're in a project, that they get paid for investing.
Can somebody that's a Mexican investor come in and invest with you?
Anyone can invest.
Anybody can
invest.
Because
it's not.
It's easy to be Sonia's friend.
That sounds bad, right?
Sonia's not easy. I'm just saying, drinking coffee with her.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah. Clarify that, right? Because I get some weird DMs sometimes. So clarify.
So let's say you have a Mexican investor that comes in who has a large amount of money that he wants to invest. How does that affect his legal status? Will that affect his legal status, like, for example, on an ITIN number or something like that, or somebody coming from there?
That's a great question.
I mean, because there's a lot of people out there, mexicanos que quieren invertir aquí, que quieren hacer inversión aquí, tienen dinero en México, y cómo les va a afectar en la inversión. Necesitan tener un ITIN, necesitan que tener.
I would say they have an ITIN. I'm sure. Like I said, I've taken foreign investments, but not from Mexico. So I'm actually not sure. I'd have to.
I mean, an ITIN number with it's not.
Well, that's what I was going to say. Getting an ITIN is not rocket science, right?
Go on the computer and get it.
Yeah. The biggest thing for us is the way that we have security on our projects is that they get a promissory note, they get a deed of trust, so they're actually on the deed.
Oh, they're actually on the deed. Okay.
So they have a deed position.
Okay.
And they're on our insurance. Okay. So if everything went to hell, let's say the fires that happened in LA, if everything went to hell, then our investors would actually get paid before we do. And that's really important to me because, again, you can lose on this thing, right? Nothing's ever guaranteed, especially not in real estate. Right. But how do you have security that at least safeguards your money?
Right.
Because our biggest thing is making sure that we're able to increase our financial friends' money in a safe and secure environment, right? And so we try to do everything we can to make sure that they're safeguarded, at least as much as we can do. Okay. If we were to lose on a project, we have 10 more in the pipeline, right? That, hey, if I couldn't get you on this one, you're going to be fine on this one, this one, this one, or this one. Here's the rest of the deeds that I need you to make sure that you're going to be good, right? That's a big ethical philosophy that we have, that me and my partner are aligned with, of my financial groups that I'm with. We're all in that same alignment of like, this is the way we do business, right? So I would say, considering the kind of instruments that we use, it's a promissory note and a deed of trust. It's just who it's vested under. So who's the name? So la inversionista, si nomás es su nombre de su cuenta, lo que sea, he's going to be on a deed position.
So está en el título, so no hay problema.
Está en el título. Now, at the end of the year, when we pay out what we pay out, we issue a K9.
K9.
Yeah. So we'll issue a K9 saying, here is what what you let us borrow. It's a debt. So it's a loan, right? So there is no monies exchanged on the loan part of it, only on the whatever profit they got, right? So if it's 10%, then that's what they're claiming in any kind of tax scenario, right? But they want to talk to their professionals, to their CPAs, that kind of stuff, to make sure that they can hedge against that tax liability as much as possible.
Try to
and most of my investors are actually come from the self-directed world. So they put their accounts or their monies into self-directed tax-free accounts. Then they lend me the money, and then everything goes back tax-free.
Okay.
And so that's an amazing strategy that I've learned. And so most of my investors actually do it that way.
Okay.
But a lot of my investors have said, I just have.
Now, for that kind of I'm sorry.
Yeah, go ahead.
That kind of investment, is there a specific bank that's doing those, or a specific place that people would have to go to?
It's called a custodian company.
Okay.
And so, like, we can give them the resources that we use, that we can recommend. But there's some great custodian companies out there. And a custodian is what wealthy people use. Like, they don't use banks. They use custodians. They put their stuff in a self-directed, and they basically tell their custodian company, here's my investment. Put the money over there. Here's my other investment. Put the money over there. And they just give them the paperwork, and then the custodian company goes, okay, and they wire the money, right? And then as soon as the money comes back, they take it in as a custodian, put it right back into their account.
What's the cost on something like that? Like, what's the custodian making out of it? Is it a certain
there's not a commission.
There's not a commission.
No.
Okay.
Which is, when you think about financial services.
Yeah, but I'm thinking, what are they making on it, you know?
They make very little. This is why there's not a lot of custodian companies. But it's the custodian companies are really set up by wealthy people.
What makes sense to them? Are they investing in something else? No. When they're sending the money out, they're investing your own money.
It is a tool that wealthy people have set up for hundreds of years, to basically since the beginning of the U.S.
I'm telling you.
I didn't say why. I said wealthy. I said wealthy.
No, I said wealthy. I didn't say white.
I heard white.
No, these wealthy people. How did they set all this thing up? We'll get there eventually.
I gotta tell you, Lisa, that I'm part of the Aspire community. That's the community that I'm a part of. And something that clicked with me that Andrew and Eddie said, there's the founders of the company, of the community, is they're like, there's two different games that are being played. Like, we know that there's different sets of rules for wealthy people, right? You know this. If you're in the industry of any kind of industry that makes money.
If you haven't noticed, it's going on now.
Yeah,
it's going on now.
Especially now, right? And he would say, and he says, you know, when you first join the community, there's not two sets of rules. There's two different fucking games.
Yeah.
Like, they are playing the game that's almost opposite of what we're playing, even as entrepreneurs, even as high-level entrepreneurs. If you don't understand that the game of money and the rules of money are different for the 1% than they are everywhere else, and you don't start playing by those games, you're not even allowed into that club. So if you're not even aware of those rules, how are you supposed to go over there? He's like, it's like if you used to play Monopoly with your family and you guys started just making up all these rules, and then you go to try to play Monopoly with somebody else, and you're like, no, I can do this, I can do that, and they look at you like you're crazy.
No,
right?
you're crazy.
Like,
you can't do that.
That's not the rules here.
Yeah.
So they wouldn't let you play, right? So learning the language and the rules of that game has accelerated my own company now, and I'm going on 2 years now to be where it's at. But
see, that's the one thing. That's the one thing about informing. And believe it or not, I always, when I have conversations with people, I always learn stuff. I've never heard of that before.
And that's what I'm saying. That all of us were like, okay, so how much do custodians make?
That's what I was like.
They're basically like,
in my little head, it's like
bank tellers. No, because they're not trying to sell you anything. They're not financial advisors. A financial advisor makes commission every time.
Sure.
There's nothing wrong with financial advisors.
Yeah,
okay?
there
put
is.
that out there. But they make commissions off of the products that they're selling you and off the stuff that they're suggesting to you. Custodians are there to move your money.
That's all they do.
That's all they do. And I believe, we set up accounts. It was less than $1,500. And it was less than $500 a year just to maintain an account. It was way less than that, if I remember correctly. And so they're not hand over fist making money, but most people didn't know that there's this tool.
They probably make their money on the quantity of people that are doing it.
Well, again, it's like a bank. A bank holds your money, and they lend against your money, right? I don't believe custodians do that because, again, the rules were put into place so that they were a tool for wealthy people to use. They weren't supposed to be there to make money. Yeah. That's not their functionality. Their functionality is to have a protected entity to grow this tax-free, right? And so they're custodians of your money. That's it,
and
right?
If it's costing you $2,500 a year to do that.
No, it's not even. That's only the first year.
Let me just say that, if it costs
less than that, it's less than $1,000 a year.
Really?
For you to be able to move your monies in and out.
Because once you establish it, then that's okay.
And again, with my community,
and it's tax-free.
Yeah, with my community, that became when you signed up for the membership, they gave you these accounts. They said, it was called Equity Trust. We have a partnership. They're the ones that we like. There's only like 50 custodians in the country. This is the one that we like. This is the one that's going to take on everybody's thing. Over the last 2 years in that community, they've opened more self-directed accounts than ever in the history of self-directed accounts
Oh, wow.
because this community was growing so fast, and people were like, "This is what I got to do."
They understand the process. They understand
Again, once
the
people
benefits.
understand,
They understand the benefits, and like going, like you're saying, if it's going to cost me two grand the first year, but it's going to cost me a lot less after. I mean, it makes sense if you're in the long run. That's what you want to do.
Yeah,
it makes sense.
So I always tell people, like, as soon as you can start a self-directed, whether it's through your company, because your companies will let you move your 401ks over,
Really?
like certain amount of it, depending on the company. They'll let you move it over into a self-directed. So you roll it over into a self-directed. Now you can direct that money and do anything you want with it.
Wow.
Right? And so again, if I do what we call a small money movement, right? I'm going to give you $2,000 in 60 days, you're going to give me 10% on that money, let's say, right? For whatever reason. So now I've made 10% on that money.
En español eso se llaman tandas.
Yeah. So this is, I thought it was so funny. We were talking about this. Son tandas. No, condinas. I was just talking to my siblings about this because in the presentations that I do, one of the things that we talk about is building a story, right?
Yeah.
And I realized that I didn't really tell my personal story about money and why we never talked about money growing up. Sure. And, as a first generation
usually you
Latinas,
don't talk about it because we don't have it.
Right. And that's what I'm talking about. Yeah. The conversation is always around lack.
Yeah.
It's never around abundance or investing or anything like that. Not even saving.
And they don't teach you this in school.
Para nada. And like I said, in your parents' memos, right? Yeah. It was keep your head down, work,
Bust your ass, and you'll be able to get out.
Yeah. And but one of the things that I was saying is I remember my parents always held the tandas, right? And what happened if somebody didn't pay? They had to cover. They had to cover it because they weren't gonna, they weren't gonna be bad. They would. Just
I always ask for the first number.
Yeah. See, my mom used to love the first numbers, and my dad used to like the last numbers.
Really?
Yeah. So that was kind of crazy.
But there's different perspectives on that, right?
Should we explain what that is? Most people don't know what tandas are.
Yeah, explain what tandas are.
So tandas, the way that we understood it, it was like community savings account, basically, right? So if you had 10 numbers, you would get 10 people together, trusted people, because again, it goes back to
trusted.
There is
El problema es que cuando tú tienes que ir a recogerlo por todos.
And it was this concept of financial friends before I knew what financial friends were, right? So 10 personas, you would get together, and let's say it's $100 a week that everybody would give, right? So for 10 people at $100 a week, that's $1,000, right? So everybody, you'd get numbers 1 through 10. Cuando te tocaba, you got the $1,000.
Right.
So if you were number 1, you would give your $1,000. You get the $1,000. Everybody would put in 100. You would get it. Then second week comes around, everybody puts in their 100. Number 2 would get their $1,000. And then the third week comes around, everybody puts in their 100. Number 3 would get their $1,000. So when expenses would come up, like they knew a quinceañera was coming up, they knew graduations were coming up.
I think tandas probably started with quinceañeras.
That's probably the mechanism of it.
Porque los pinches mexicanos no tenemos dinero para nada, pero para la quinceañera tenemos todo.
15, 20 mil dólares sin falta.
Sin falta,
right?
Yeah.
But tandas were a big deal. And I just remember that was one of the things that my parents used to do was like if they needed money, they would organize 10 people and say, hey, we're all going to save together. And sometimes people would split numbers and be like 50-50 because they can't do the whole thing, but then they'd get 500 each. But again, if somebody, si les quedaron mal, I remember my parents tenían que pagar. But when that person's number hit, le cobraban.
Yeah.
Right? So if they had to cover 2 weeks for them, then they would only give them 800. They would stay with the 200 because they had to cover.
The last time that I got into was like $500 a week.
Wow.
It was like 20 people.
Wow.
Yeah, it was like.
And again, and for people to organize it, have to go get.
That's the problem, organizing it.
Yeah, have to hunt the money down. Make sure again that it's trusted people. But I mean, it was this concept of financial friends before I knew what financial friends were.
And it tends to be, I think, the financial friends concept. It's more prevalent in like the Asian communities, like Asians for some.
Every minority.
Yeah, también los Persians,
Indian, Asian,
yeah.
Mexicanos on our levels, right? What we were talking about, the smaller levels. Everybody, like especially Vietnamese community with the nail shops, right? It's like we'll put up one nail shop for one person, and then the money that comes from that one will
open up
with the second one, and then the money.
And there's not that much.
Hispanics
don't do that much. We don't help each other out.
We don't help each other in large scale when it comes to community. We don't. We do it in these small groups, pero tenemos una desconfianza.
Claro. Los hispanos todos tenemos la desconfianza.
Es la desconfianza.
Y la envidia. Y también los han chingado muchas veces por eso.
Pero por la misma cosa, it's self-perpetual.
No, pues por eso la gente que viene conmigo, si lo vas a sacar de la cárcel, and they're looking, you know,
Right.
yeah, but I'm like,
Pero
yeah,
¿cuántos abogados
here's my
have
license.
taken money?
Yeah.
You know,
Los abogados le
que me
roban
van a
dinero,
ayudar a inmigración,
los abogados de inmigración, todos esos.
all of it.
Mhm.
And like I said, I didn't really think about that until I started raising capital. I start raising capital and I start hearing these stories from different people all over the country,
Yeah.
Latinos and non-Latinos, obviously, about, you know, losing money
Sure.
because of who they did business with. And then that really was like, it's not about what or how, it's about who.
Yeah.
It's about who are you doing business with? Because are they a trusted track record, all those kind of things.
Mhm.
Because yeah, that's really important. You have to like Yelp somebody basically.
And, yeah, and I think in our community, what tends to happen is, and we've seen it, and I think Oscar and me, we've seen it, like we've had a couple of different investors come to us, and it seems like they come in a desperate matter. It's like, oh, I need to put this together because this company and the payoff is this big, and you're like, yeah, fucker, I don't think so. Yeah.
Right. Well, and again, the too good to be true
Yeah,
can
exactly.
be true when
Exactly.
when you're dealing with a certain level of wealth in
Yeah.
the financial friend section.
Last
Because
night-
again, somebody's going to give you 50% return, but guess what? If you move money with me and I gave you a 50% return, whatever it was, right? You gave me $1,000, I gave you $1,500 back. And the next time I move money with you and you give me a 55% return and it's all tax free, what are we really doing? We're moving each other's money. That's it.
Money.
Right? Pero yo te tengo confianza because we're doing it together,
Right.
or we're doing it all three or four of us.
Mhm.
And what happens if you break the chain with somebody else? Nobody in that community trusts you anymore, right?
Yeah,
So
yeah.
what happens if
The
the $5 million that
integrity
I've
part goes
raised,
out, yeah.
right? I would never be able to raise in that community again.
Yeah.
What's your reputation?
Yeah, it's your reputation, it's all this stuff. So, and again, I think people get into this desperate mode where they're like, I just need it. I need to do it, instead of understanding the complexities that come behind it, right?
Yeah.
But it's not that complex once you actually align, I think, with the attitude, with the integrity, with the operators that understand what they're doing.
Interesting enough, last night I had a case where it was a $100,000 bond, and the family called me and they're like, "This company's going to do it for 1%." I go, 1%? He's like, "Yeah, 1% down, but they're going to put a lien on my house."
Right.
And then they're like, and like, "How much do you charge?" I go, "Well, I can do it for 8," and like, "But I won't put a lien in your house." And they're like, "Okay, we'll do it with you,"
Right.
because they know the thing about that 1%. The other company might arrest him because if he doesn't make his payments. And then as soon as they don't take care of it, then they're going to hike up the 1% to 10%,
and they can foreclose.
And they're foreclosing the house.
Yeah.
And I said, "Come on, it just doesn't make sense that you're going to have $100,000 loan on a bond, and you're paying them $1,000.
Right.
That doesn't even cover cost for a bond. So it's one of those things. If it's too good to be true, and I told those people, take it, but it's too good to be true. If you want to lose some money, go for it. But this is the way it should work.
Well, and it goes risk and reward,
Yeah.
right? I mean, it initially might seem, but when you read the fine print, there's just so much more risk there.
Mm-hmm.
So it's still legitimate. They still can do it.
Yeah.
But what are they really risking?
Yeah, and then they got to do exactly what that company
Exactly.
does.
And that has to be a hard industry, because again, you have somebody who's already gotten themselves in trouble.
Well, you got that desperate
right, and the desperation, you have all that stuff, and you're like,
Yeah.
you are vouching for someone who's already not in a great space in their life, right?
Yeah.
And now you're going, they're going to be amazing from here on out.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to put my house.
Well, the good thing about our side is that we are about people that are vouching are like the parents or the uncles or the brothers or the sisters. The guy that's in jail, it's like we don't know.
No, but that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
That the family is vouching for this person.
Yeah.
And
I've had people walk out.
Yeah, I'm saying, and jeopardizing their house. And
I have
all
people
these
come up and like, "Oh,
hard,
I got to secure the whole amount. I'm not just paying you the 10%." And they're like, "I'm out.
Yeah,
I'll bounce." I had a guy that was like, he's going to put up his lowrider. He's like, "Fuck no, I ain't putting up my lowrider." He's like, "I'm going to lose it because this guy's mess."
And that's what I'm saying. They're willing to help, but to a certain extent, because then the risk is too much.
Because they don't no lo confiaron. They don't trust them.
Yeah,
wow.
So everything is risk and reward in life, right? Everything. So,
but the only way you ever earn or make money is risking your money. You're not gonna.
Money that is sitting in a bank account or abajo de
la
cama del colchón is not making money. It's losing money because inflation is eating away at it. So I always say, like, if you're not at least beating inflation, your 4% that you're getting in your little, in your CDs or whatever, that's not anything.
Well, that's when you need to talk to a financial expert.
Yes, you need to talk to me. Because I always have deals. But and the ideas of like insurance, we talked about insurance, right? Like universal life, and your money has to work. It has to. The job we work so hard for this stuff. It's like the job of money is to go make more money. Okay, the job of money is not to sit here so that you can look pretty and how much zeros you have in your bank account. It's how much is it out there making and how much are you actually protecting tax-free?
Yeah.
That's your biggest thing. And as entrepreneurs, we always think about the deduction game and how do I pay less taxes? That's one game, but again, that's not what wealthy people are doing. They're not making $100 million and going, let me deduct $100 million. That doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
Right? They're structured differently.
Unless you're the orange guy, and then you're
But again, what he did though is he structured different.
He structured it correctly. I mean, the guy's
all legal.
Filed bankruptcy. I don't know how many times, but he knows how to play the fucking game.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's a game.
It is fully on a game.
It's a game.
And if you take it that way and you understand risks and rewards again, and you understand the rules that you're actually supposed to be playing by, it is a life-changing moment.
I think for Hispanics and Latinos, they have this thing of like, I'm not gonna fucking not pay my debt. I need to pay. I that pride thing. And then sometimes, if you look at these people that have filed bankruptcy 3-4 times, it made sense to them to do that because if they didn't do that,
financial decision.
So why am I gonna break my ass and not take care of it? And then I can't afford it. It's gonna sink you. So we live in a country where we're allowed to do that, which is interesting enough and get you back on your feet. So it's understanding. Like I said, it's all information. It's all understanding the game. Yeah, it's a game.
Yeah, it really is. And like I said, not enough of us are playing, especially as Latinos. I do go to these events, like I said, across the country. I'm going to Denver next week. I go to Phoenix.
You're all over the place, man.
I see. I go to Phoenix 2 weeks after that, and then I go to Orlando for our mastermind at the end of the year. I mean, at the end of the month.
Okay.
And but again, every time I go, I raise capital. Right. I'm starting to see more and more Latinos in these things, which is amazing. I'm starting to see more women. I mean, we're only like 36% of investors. That's it. We're a third of investors. We hold more than half the money now, and we're only a third of investors. That makes no sense to me. So the biggest deal for me, and this is why you see me all over the place, is that with visibility comes belief. Right? And I've had so many women at events that I've gone to, whether I'm speaking at them or they just see me, I'm checking in or something. And I'll be like, I was checking out this event. And I said, oh, it's under Sonia. And she goes, oh, no, I know you.
I know who you are.
She goes, I know who you are. She goes, multi-unit queen. And I was like, oh, that sounds nice. And she was like, I need my daily dose of Sonia. She goes, every time I watch you in the morning and I see the stuff that you do and you post, I did this. She goes, I always think, you know what? I can do one more thing. I can finish this task. I can do this. And I'm like, oh my gosh, that's amazing.
To me, the way it's happened is like somebody, un videoso one time told me, how come you post everything you do? And I go, because I want to inspire somebody to know that they can do, whether it be a real estate deal, whether it be, I'm big on community, helping in your community. When I post that we're helping all these kids and doing stuff like that.
Yeah, you do a lot
I don't do it
things.
to like, do this. I do it to inspire people to say, hey, man, I should do that. I should do, Luis's first year of my jacket drive, I had 12 jackets.
Right.
We just did 700 jackets to
my
farm
gosh.
workers.
Yeah. I saw your
year.
post about it because I kept reposting.
Yeah. So it's like when 12, it's going to be the 10th year. We started with 12 jackets.
Yeah.
Now we're at 700 jackets.
Yeah, it's like the power of community. Because of criticism and self-belief and the limiting and all the stuff that you think people are thinking about you when you go, if I just do it, what could happen from it?
I was talking to a business owner today, and she started a business about a year ago. And I asked her, you want to be on my podcast? So I even offered her, I go, I can get you into that TV station that I go to. Oh, I'm scared. I'm like, and I told her.
He hasn't offered the TV station to me.
I will.
By the way. Okay.
If the price is right.
Not to put you on the spot. Right?
If the price is right, I'll offer that. Pero le dije, hey, I'll offer you going here so you can talk about your business, because she was saying how her business is not where she thinks it should be. And I said, well, you need to get it out there. I go, and I see there's certain things. And I said, have you thought of going live? Have you thought of doing testimonials of the people that you're helping? Right. And she's looking at me and I'm like going, it makes sense. And she's like, I'm scared. It's like, you can't be scared when you're in business. You can't be scared.
And scared of what? Again, scared of somebody's opinion?
Yeah.
And even somebody's opinion who doesn't know you?
I went to Home Depot the other day. I tried to pay with opinions. They want to take them. They want to cash.
Right?
That's what I always tell people.
I try to pay my bills.
I try to pay my bills with opinions. They won't take it. They won't take it. Hey, I got all these opinions, They won't take it, but it's interesting enough.
It is, but again, it just goes back to self-consciousness and limiting and all these things. But I think about who sees her and goes, wow, mira lo que hizo. If she can, I can. And it just goes back to that, right? When they see any kind of representation, that's why it's so important to see representation.
And let me just say, it's not easy. And
No,
it's
it's not.
It's not easy, because if it was easy, everybody would do it. People always say, "Hey, is it easy?" No, it's not easy. You're gonna have to work your butt off. You're gonna have to study. You're gonna have to get licenses. You're gonna have to go to different events, network, your connections, collaborations, and stuff like that will get you eventual people to connect with you and trust you.
Yeah.
More than anything. So that's
Because
a big thing.
by design, I go to one event a week minimum. That's by design, because I understand that puts me in front of people. Again, that brings me deals, that brings me capital.
Dude, if I went to all the events I get invited to, I wouldn't.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You know, you're like, you had the whole family going and everything. It's a little bit easier for me, right? I'm like single, no kids. I'm like, where do I need to be, right? But it goes back to it's in alignment with my goals, right? So it's one event at least a week, speak at one event a month, right? And I was just like, podcast, everything. I was like, I need to do all these
You
things.
need to get out there. You need to have the exposure when people see you, and they might go, este cabrón otra vez con su pinche podcast.
I know.
But it's like, hey, 7 years,
okay.
7 years, baby.
Yeah.
7 years. And it's continuous, and it's just different people. People have actually come back. And I have people. Everybody's important to me. And I've had like the mayor, and I've had like he's now the supervisor of our county. I've had different people, and I've had the bad supervisor. I had different people that come on. It's
the one that's not a supervisor.
He's not a supervisor anymore. He's he's locked up.
I know. I keep up with the because I was the Parks and Rec supervisor. I'm like, I keep up with city government. I like the cheeseman.
And you got to get involved.
Yeah.
I always tell people you must get involved, whether it's in local government, which is the most important thing.
Yeah,
and
it's the most impactful again.
Yeah, because you can shake somebody's hand. They know you, and then next thing you know, hey, you're talking to them, and you go, hey, I need this. Can you help me with this?
I need a resource.
Yeah, can you help me with this, or give me a resource or somebody to call?
Right.
So it's important. So
for sure.
Well, cool, man. I appreciate this conversation's been going on with 55 minutes.
55 minutes. They're sick of us.
Yeah,
they're sick of you. They like me.
They're sick of me. They don't like me.
No, I like I said, it's been a crazy year and a half for me. A year and a half that has just been crazy growth and
crazy is good sometimes because the growth.
Yeah, it's crazy in the best way possible. Like I said, I'm enjoying the ride. As hard as it is, every other month as an entrepreneur, you're like, I hate what I do. Why did I do this? I should just go back and get a job. And then the next month you're like, I would never trade this in for the world, right?
Well, the best part of being your own boss is you can do what the hell you want to do. You can get up at noon, you can go to sleep at whatever time,
right?
But obviously you need to know that when there's business you got to go.
And that's what you're saying. You're like, you're all over the place. I am, but I work from my phone most of the time.
That's right. If it wasn't for phones, I remember when I got into the bail bond business, we had beepers. If I didn't have a phone now,
now
it's
like,
yourself. Now it's like, that's okay. I'm okay with aging myself.
I know.
But now it's like, let me email you the app. I would DocuSign it, send it back to me, send me the credit card, boom. Send me Zelle now. Zelle, let's get it done with that.
With everything. That's what I'm saying.
Apple Pay. I've been using Apple Pay for all my stuff nowadays too.
Yeah.
So it's like,
is you have to keep evolving. Oh, we were talking about AI. So speaking of AI and evolving, like I learned this amazing lesson with AI recently that I want to share because I thought it was so good. Okay. So if you missed my stories and you missed it, right? It was like before with our websites and everything, you had to have it optimized for SEO, right? So that was like you pay for ad space, you do all these things. Gary Vee just spoke at the last Aspire conference, and he's going to be speaking at the next one. I'm excited about him. And you know who Gary Vee is, right? So Gary Vee said, in the next 5 years, phones are going to be obsolete. They're going to go away. And he's like, I've seen what's coming down the pipe at Meta and all the big ones, right? I go to all these things.
Okay.
And he's like, the wearables, the AI, the Alexa kind of stuff, right? He's like, it's going to be as easy as I'm having, hey, Alexa, or whatever your AI is called, I'm having dinner tonight with 3 people. One's Persian, one's lactose free, one's vegan. Order me dinner to be here by 7:30, right? And AI is going to go out, find what you need, and have dinner ready for you at 7:30, right? But how is it finding the companies that it's going to bring to you? It's going out and searching who has the social footprint already that they go, oh, that company has this thing, so I'm going to bring it because that's what the consumer's asking for, right? Okay. So unless you go, hey, Alexa, order me a pizza from Pizza Hut, name brand.
That's an actual brand. Precise thing.
Then it'll do that. But if you just said order a pizza, it's going to find GEO.
GEO.
So that's why YouTube is such a big deal because that's connected with Facebook and Meta, right? because AI right now is scouring the internet for stuff, and it's a learning model. So it's learning your company. So if you are not using AI, you are not feeding AI.
You're behind.
You're behind already. And what the trainer, his name is Leron, big shout out to Leron, he's amazing, has done some major YouTube channels and marketing stuff. He was like, do this exercise. Put into whatever AI, whether you use Gemini or you use ChatGPT or Perplexity, any of the models that you use, put in who is and your name and see what comes up, or who is and your company name and see what comes up.
I'm gonna do that.
Right. So we used to Google ourselves.
Yeah.
So it's basically that same concept. And he said, put it in and see what happens. Right. And I was like, he said, as soon as it makes sense to me, I'm like, right. So I went on, I put, who is Sonia Ramirez? A bunch of stuff.
I was gonna say a bunch of them.
Yeah, because Sonia Ramirez is, there's actresses, there's like federal judges, so that didn't come up. And I said, okay, that's not it. I gotta go more specific. Granular. And so I put, who is multi-unit queen? Right? Boom.
Really?
3 pages of, she's a real estate developer. She's done over 100 things. She teaches, she speaks, she's done this, she does this. And I was like, holy shit, it's on there, right?
Yeah.
And I showed it to Leron. I actually sent it to him and I said, look what happened when I said who is, and he was like, now you got to feed the beast. You got to use AI more and more and teach that model about your business,
who you are and what you're doing
as your business.
So, wow.
And so now I use AI, and that was like 3 weeks ago. I literally have used it for almost everything now.
On the AI, whether you're using chat, whether you're using whatever it is, there is one big section where they're all together, or
no, because they're scouring the internet.
Okay.
So they are scouring the internet, and again, just kind of in seconds, obviously, right? This is why it comes up so quickly. But even so, the craziest things that you can use AI for that you don't think of, right? We were painting that duplex that's outside of Beverly Hills that I was telling you. We're getting ready to pre-market and sell it.
Okay.
And so I wanted a new paint job, whatever. My partner was like, hey, I need you to pick the paint out from Dunn Edwards, right? And it got into like, they're buying it tomorrow. What colors are you picking? And I was like, I haven't gone to look at Dunn Edwards' website. I haven't done it. What do? I get on my ChatGPT. I upload a photo of the duplex from Google, right? I took a screenshot of the front of it from Google Maps.
Okay.
And I said, here's the photo of my duplex. And it's a Spanish style, right? So I want a Mediterranean white and blue style for this paint job from Dunn Edwards, right? Boom. It gives me, in seconds, gives me Mediterranean blue for this, white for the base. Here's your trim color. Do you want me to do a rendering of this photo? Yes, please. Gives me the rendering with the new color scheme on it, right? And I said, I like that. But I think one of the blues was too light. And I said, that blue's too light. Or I think it was more of a green. And I said, I want that green to be more blue. Gives me another thing, renders it again, gives me a new rendering. And I said, okay, that's it. Give me a downloadable PDF of the materials I need. This is a 3,600 square foot duplex. Boom. Gave me a PDF. Less than 10 minutes, I was done. I sent it to our sub. I sent it to my partner. And I'm like, here's the PDF of how much they need of every color. Because it was in a table format.
Awesome.
And here's a rendering so they know exactly what
it's going to look like.
And I was like, boom, 10 minutes out. And he was just like, how'd you get that done so fast? And I was like, it's AI, dude. Like, what do you, same thing with like my content for YouTube. I'm trying to figure out what I wanted to do. And I fed it into AI and I said, here's my website. Here's my Instagram handle. Create a content calendar for me for YouTube, for long form and for short form for the next 4 weeks, based on what you see in my Instagram and what you see on my webpage. Seconds.
Really?
Now write an SOP for this, a standard operating procedure, write an SOP for this, and now put it in a PDF format. Boom, boom, boom. Everything's ready to go. And I was just like, okay.
Pretty soon we will not need college.
People need to know how to prompt. They need to know how
to put it in.
How to use AI.
Yeah, that sounded weird, but they need to know how to they need to know how to put it into the chat.
Okay, put it into AI still sounds weird. But there's literally people in Asia and in different countries that are in full-on relationship in AI with an AI agent. And they know it. It's not that they don't know it. They understand that this is a AI agent, what you would call an AI agent.
Crazy. And
on full-on relationships with them. It is where it's going, and so it's like, how do you use it? How do you harness it? And
there was a movie back in the remember that movie?
I remember AI.
Yeah.
The Rules of Robotics.
Yeah.
I remember.
Wow, that's crazy.
So I just went like I said, it was about 2 weeks ago, almost 3 weeks that I went through that training, and I was like, I'm in. So I've been using AI for everything because all it's doing is teaching the model what my company does.
Wow.
And somebody in my investment group, he does really high end remodels for, I think he's out in Denver or Texas, Travis. And he does like $200,000 kitchens. Like he does really high end remodels. And he got a lead that came in, and the lady, he always asked where they saw
they got them from.
Right. Mm-hmm. And he's like, where did it come from? And she said, oh, from ChatGPT. And he was like, excuse me? And she said that she got a quote from another company, that she didn't really like the customer service, and she went into ChatGPT and said, this is the quote that I got. Mm-hmm. Match me with another company who could do something similar. And his name and number came up. So he got a $200,000 lead contract from ChatGPT. And he didn't even know what he was doing to feed his stuff. So now he's in the training, because I was on virtually. It was done in Florida. So I'm on virtually. He's in the room, and he was like, this just happened to me. And he was like, it's a $200,000 lead that I got from AI. He goes, and I had no idea how I even got on there. He was like, but now that I understand that if I feed it, it will keep spitting out my company more and more. He's like, trust me, I'm doubling down, Wow. So that goes back to, it's free right now. But what happens when the wearables and all those things start going, you don't have a footprint yet? Well, you can pay to get a footprint. to get a footprint, so that we can get you higher on these results.
Just like everything else. Like everything else. SEO was the same way.
Exactly.
When it started coming out.
So right now, if you're not doing it and really implementing your social footprint in a big way, or at least in your company, whether you do it personally or not is up to you, right? But at least as your company, you are going to be left behind. And this is not 15, 20 years in the future. This is in less than 5 years.
Less than 5 years, wow. Or the good old pay-per-click.
Pay-per-click, which still happens. A lot of people still do pay-per-click. Yeah. But again, with the immersion of ChatGPT and everything, and again, whether it's good for the environment, not good for environment, because you understand that these machines take up a ton of power. They take up a lot. There's all these things.
There's a lot of green going on there.
So there's a lot of pros and cons to what it is to use AI. But the reality is that it's here. It's being implemented all over the country, much more than it is for us, and we are going to be way behind if we don't. So
gotta start using that stuff.
It is a business advantage that people do not think about. Wow. And I was like, you have to get into it. And like I said, you already have a YouTube channel. You already have a lot of footprint. Yeah. Now it's just making sure that your AI knows that you have it.
I have Googled myself, and there's pictures and information about me. There's a guy in.
But you Googled yourself. You didn't AI yourself.
Right. Yeah. I'm going to do that now.
Yeah. So now
this is why I do this, because I learn all kinds of shit. It's like I learn all kinds of stuff, and it's like, wow, I would have never thought about that.
I didn't even think about that. Yeah. I thought I'm pretty tech savvy, and I was like, I did not think about that.
I am not that tech savvy, but I am okay.
I consider myself pretty tech savvy.
Yeah. There's some things I'm like, oh shit, it still surprises me and stuff like that. Well, thank you so much for coming by, Sonia. I mean, it's such an interesting career, such an interesting things, all things I was doing there. And leaving your number if anybody's interested in, coming out or talking to you or have a conversation. I told her is in development, and she's like, I'm gonna watch that. So people are maybe interested in doing investing, learning what we just had talked about and all that. So I mean, you want to give me your information? I know there's a lot of people that know you. Give them your number.
No, not everybody knows you. So no. The best thing and the easiest thing for me, my full handle. So everything is at Multi-Unit Queen, all one word, at Multi-Unit Queen. So my webpage is multiunitqueen.com. There's a calendar there. So if they wanted to book a one-on-one session with me, if they wanted to talk shop, or again, talk Latinas, how do I get?
I have one that says talk shit, but
there you go. That's a different one. Talk shop. Talk shop. So multiunitqueen.com is kind of the best way to get into my ecosystem and to get into my world. DMs are usually the second best thing. So on Instagram, I'm very, very active. Facebook, I'm starting again, TikTok, and with my YouTube channel. I do have a YouTube channel. It's at Multi-Unit Queen. But you'll start seeing a lot more of educational content on that after we just talked about this AI thing. So you'll be seeing a lot more of how do you analyze deals, what makes it a good deal, what are the rules and regulations around zoning, all those kind of things. So you're going to see a lot more of that. But it's all on my socials. That's the best way to get a hold of me. And then go from there, basically. So you want to invest, you want to talk with me, you want me to speak at your events. I have Latinas in Construction, Volume 2 coming out. I'm going to contribute an editor in that, so that should be coming out in the next couple of months.
With, what's her name?
That's with Tina.
Tina Marie Hernandez?
Uh-huh.
Yeah. Okay.
So I connected with Tina she saw me speak somewhere.
Okay.
And she was like, hey, I'd love for you to do this.
Yeah,
Her office is actually right down the street.
Yeah, she's right over here by.
I
right on the side.
She offered, hey, if you ever need a space to work, because my goal this year is to buy a building. So right now I work remotely as much as possible. But yeah, I mean, again, it goes back to these connections, right?
Right.
So lots of really cool stuff happening. And my goal, so I'm telling everybody, this is my goal, is to get on 3 major stages, right? So we're several hundreds of thousand people stages this year, as a female speaker, as a Latina in construction, in development space, specifically, obviously in the LA area, where it's much more difficult. So if you know anyone, then reach out.
Yeah. Very cool.
But thank you so much, man. Like I said,
thank you so much. Yeah.
It's been years, and I'm glad we're able to do these things together.
I tend to, like I said, I'm not that that big into tech and stuff, but I tend to do these little things that keep it interesting.
And you create community. I mean, that's
the biggest thing with OC Biz. We got the 3 C's with OC Biz: connections, collaborations, and community. That's what it's all about.
Love that.
Yeah, that's what it's all about. So let's talk about one event. We're doing a Lucha Libre night over at Masa, which is Media Arts Center in Santana.
Yeah, with Victor and Pocha.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So I sit on their board, and I'm an ambassador for them. So they
connect you with who I know that's into Lucha Libre now.
Yeah, cool. Sure. That'd be cool. And then on June 5th, AISS, I'm ambassador for that group also, is 4.0 and above STEM students. We're having our gala. She's your friend too.
He makes it act like I don't know.
I
know Miss Val.
She's my friend. And her dad too.
Right.
Yeah. I feel like was one of my attorneys.
Exactly. One of the OG attorneys.
Yeah, so June 5th, guys, at the Elks Lodge. Look out for our stuff. We have an early bird special right now, $75 for a ticket. And this money goes to help these kids get to there. And we're actually looking for sponsors that want to actually sponsor and their name will be on the stage, and you will have the ability to come up on stage and give the Scholar of the Year award. We go to, but I'm sure we'll pair them up with you. You can go ahead and take care of that.
Love it.
And it'll be a fun night. Silent auction, live auction. There's a little conversation about maybe I talked to them. There's a salsa band that we might have a little dancing.
Oh, I love
maybe.
that.
So it'll be cool. So it'll be cool.
Yeah, I think I'm back from Florida on the 3rd.
Nice.
So that'll be perfect.
There you go. It's on the 5th. It's on Thursday.
Yeah.
Thursday.
Yeah, I'm back Wednesday.
Okay, cool. I don't know who I have on next week. If you guys know of anybody that wants to come on, let me know, and we'll keep doing what we do here, which is connecting, collaborating, and creating community. So signing out. We'll see you guys next week, 7 o'clock, Wednesday, 7 o'clock here from OC Biz Live.